and welcome to Two Gray Goatees and a Whistle. And today I'm joined by last minute by the coach's wife. Coach Gonzo is not feeling well, so he's out again this week. Hopefully we'll get it back someday. So I appreciate Amanda stepping in. So in this episode, we are going to kind of carry on last week's episode where I had the opportunity talking to our daughter, Kelley, about her experience in sports and the role that we kind of played in it a little bit. We're going to kind of elaborate that a little bit more. So one place I want to start is raising her in sports and her finding her own path. And then we're going to kind of go into the senior year and what happened during that senior year, which is, I think, a topic is something we need to talk about because it was an important, impactful, and we're not the only ones who dealt with this. But I think if we can share it, maybe other people will have some understanding about it. Let's go ahead and get on it. So, Kelley's early years, remember it? What are some of the memories you have of Kelley?
Yes, I remember.
What are some of the early memories you ever heard playing sports?
She always liked to do anything that was involved with a group of people. Like, she's always been kind of a team player in those aspects. She, from very young age, she played t-ball and did coach pitch. She even tried soccer once when she was probably about 7 or 8, which, if for anybody that has watched 7 and 8-year-olds play soccer, that's
Giving chickens chicken feed and just watching them.
From one morsel of food to the next.
It's like the soccer is the chicken feed, and all the kids are the chickens, and they're just...
Yeah, it's a lot.
It reminds me, was it Mulan? It had the dog with the all the chickens. Yeah. The dog would have been the soccer ball.
Yeah, the bone tied in.
Yeah, bone tied in. Yep. Yeah, that's kind of what it reminded me of. So yeah, that age, a lot of that's what you got. So yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, she, as they progress, she always stuck with softball, played coach pitch, and A League and B League and C League, and made it into high school and all that, and then played some travel ball, which you guys talked about. Much to my dismay, she wasn't much of a basketball player. I really enjoyed basketball when I was growing up, and she had the height. That was the frustrating thing. I am a very short person, and she got her dad's side of the family's height, and I was just like, yeah. And then she didn't like basketball.
And she said, though, that's one of her regrets. I think she kind of wished she would have stuck it out a little bit because she's coached it.
Yeah.
And, I think it kind of was this, I kind of did the same thing, though, because I played through grade school, a little bit through middle school, and then I didn't play in high school. And I do regret that. And I don't know if I would have been any good. I mean, I wasn't exactly tall, but I did play basketball like in church league. And so I did some organized basketball going through high school. And church league, it's not high school, but it was competitive. I mean, we were,
and sometimes they have little tournaments and it's competitive.
Yeah. And we were competitive. There was, one particular ward where I grew up that was just like, we always, in the people overall were nice, but we kind of called it Snob Hill because the town I grew up in, there's like 12,000 in that town. And so it was like one side of town, the other side, I lived on the other side of the tracks, and the people in our community, we weren't poor, we were just blue collar. And these people on the other side, for the town community, a lot of them, parents were either doctors, lawyers, had a business, owned their own business. That's kind of where they lived. Higher middle class. So I wouldn't say rich because rich in the grand is a different rich than here.
Oh, yeah.
It's for here because where we grew up now, I mean, dairy's money, dairy's king around here, and there's a lot of money in that. So it was a very different class. So, and this is not a knock to anybody in the grand. That's just what it was like. So I just remember, we were beating that ward. It's like we wanted to, I mean, and they had good players and stuff like that.
Church rivals.
It's
just a little weird.
Yeah.
It's good. Competition's good.
Yeah. And I mean, nothing against, it was fun. But anyways, so in the basketball part, going back to Kelley, I think we both kind of wish she would have. And she tried it again in middle school and
she did. And she, I mean, she learned a lot. She did have one year where there was, I wouldn't call it bullying. It was just difference of personality. And Kelley's always been very anti-drama, and we kind of raised her that way. It was just like, you stand up for yourself, you do what you know is to be right, and you be a nice person. Like, those are the three things that you need to do as a person. You need to be kind and have empathy. You need to stand up for yourself, and you need to work hard at what you're doing. And she was very, very anti-drama, and there was some drama, and she got a little fed up with it in the volleyball season, and then she had to stand up for herself, and then when basketball came around, she was just kind of over it all.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of ruined a little bit of a couple of sports for her.
Yeah. And she did mention that. She did talk about how her volleyball year, and she did switch to soccer and different.
But it was the same group of kids that played volleyball and basketball, and I think by the time volleyball was done, it was just like,
no,
I'm good.
So watching her playing up, and we each coached her while she was growing up at different times, and that's fun. Being a part of that.
You learn real quick that your kid will listen to anybody but mom and dad.
Yes, and that was a conversation we had, and she did bring that up. She brought up that,
and not in a disrespectful way. It just was like you were just talking to the wall.
You were mom and dad. You were not a coach, and that was the rough part. And she did mention that. I think it was her freshman year. Me and Coach Lenning, and I had said something, and I was trying to be a coach, and
it's hard when it's your kid.
And it's your kid. But
you try to be as fair as you can. But either you're more hard on your kid,
or
that's generally the direction
we usually hard on a kid, and that's not necessarily fair on the kid, but it's like, God, I don't want to show them favoritism.
Yeah, well, you deal with other parents,
and then you have to deal with the other side of that. So, and I remember in Coach Fleming, he had coached his girls and stuff like that in sports, so he understood, and so he saw
and girls get to that.
So he understood that. So he saw something like that happen, and I remember him pulling Kelley out. Kelley said she got pulled offside by Kirk, and they talked and said, "Hey, your dad's just trying to help you, trying to be,
Could be that teenage jerk."
Yeah, exactly. So
teenage dirtbag.
So it was nice. Got to see that, and you got a coach again in track in middle school. So
track's a little different ball game, though.
Yeah,
like it's just not the same. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I do enjoy it so much, is just very much about the individual and how hard that person puts into who and as to what they're going to become. And that I know that talent plays a big part in it, because some kids are just more athletic. Some kids just have more athletic skills than other kids. But that's not to say you can't learn to be athletic, or you can't learn that skill. And those kids are that much more rewarding because they have to work that much harder at something. And as long as they put in the effort, they can be that good. And I was glad she did track, just for that reason, even though it was just in middle school. I think track's a really good thing for all kids.
And I do too. And I've always, I remember my aunt saying this one time, that doing sports in school, you should at least have one individual sport.
Yeah.
Where it's just about you.
For sure. Whether it be tennis or
track, swimming.
Cross-country, swimming.
Yeah, where it's just about you, wrestling, where it's just all about you. It's about your work.
Your work ethic.
And there's some kids, and I think that helps. That can help develop them and build them. And I know in football, it's like, I've always said, do track, it'll teach you how to run, teach you how to do this, do wrestling, hand combat. And I know some kids, and there's benefits in doing basketball. There's benefits in doing all other sports. That's my biggest thing. Do multiple sports.
Well, we saw it with our daughter alone, how much soccer and that footwork and that learning to read the ball and get yourself to judge angles, because she's not the fastest person in the world, but she was able to learn about angles and how fast she was able to go versus the trajectory of the object she was trying to connect with. And it helped immensely with her footwork and her speed and her directional in softball.
Yeah.
It made a huge difference.
Huge difference, because she ended up in the outfield and she had track balls. And that's all about angles, especially when you don't have speed. It's all about angles.
Yeah.
So
soccer was a huge benefit for her.
So there was benefits. So, I would always tell, never have your kids doing one sport and specialize it all year. that's a whole other topic because you wear your kid down and all that stuff. So
yeah, well, and we get it. I mean, we only had one child to circumstances out of her control, and she loved to be involved, and she did everything. She was always busy, sometimes doing 2-3 things at a time, and it's a lot as a parent. It's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot of money. And I understand when you have 2, 3, 4 kids that are all going in 4 different directions. But the most you can allow those kids to do that, I think the better, more rounded person they are.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
not just sports, any extracurricular.
Right. And so that leads us to our next thing. And Kelley, as she got older, I mean, she had other interests.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
always
she was
theater and
and she did, we were our last couple of years we lived in Oregon, she got to do 4-H, which is a good thing for kids because it works on responsibility and stuff like that. So she got to do that. And then when we came here, her seventh grade year, so she was able to do band, I believe, in middle school was band. And I don't think that she did choir.
I don't remember being a part of it.
Sixth grade, I don't think it was yet.
But from seventh on,
she started doing band and choir, and that was another thing in her wheelhouse because that's her personality. She liked doing that stuff. So she was doing the sports, she was doing extra stuff, and I think that is crucial too. I think for parents, especially if they're sports parents, is if your kid gets to a point and they're not interested in certain stuff anymore, but they're finding other interests, support them, whatever it is.
For sure.
And it's really hard because I've seen this before, and we know these parents who are just
they're living vicariously through their kids.
Yeah, and it's just like, you need to be this, you need to be that, and they are pushing them so hard. I stand back and I'm going, oh my God, you're going to destroy that kid.
Burnout's real.
Burnout's a real thing, and I think sometimes parents you got to have a break. Professional athletes have breaks.
Yes.
Yeah,
for a reason.
And you're doing this in a crucial time period in their life in middle school, high school, where they're still developing, they're still growing. And
they got a full 10, or what do they call it? 3-ring circus going on their head.
Yeah.
Without anything else.
Yeah. Just the brain development itself, as we both know, it's going on up there. Later on, she did get in choir, and she did some good things with it. She did a couple plays she did in the summertime. So
she was King Julian.
King Julian for a adaptation of the Jungle Book, and then in high school she played a Southerner / pretending to shoot birds. I don't know, kind of a.
She's a very. She doesn't care. She doesn't care. She will stand up on that stage and act like anything she wants to act like. Yeah. And anybody that can do that is.
Yeah.
Just not care.
Yeah, she didn't care.
Just throw herself into it.
And me and Kelley talked about this last time. We talked about favorite moments and the Filer game when we won districts.
Yeah.
And we had pink eye paint.
Eye black, yeah.
Eye black. Well, I guess it's not eye black. It's eye pink, whatever it was. But yeah, that's was it. And so we were all coaches, players. We all had that on, and then we had won districts for the first time ever in the short time of that program, and we beat our team, our rival. She had concert right after that.
Yeah, she still had her softball ribbon in her hair, and her hair all her little wispies out, and her pink on, and she went from the field to the back of the gym and threw her black dress on and stood up on the bleachers.
Uniform, threw on this black dress, and that just happened.
Pictures of her.
And actually, that just happened. Was May 3rd, and this episode we're shooting is today's the 5th. Yeah. No, today's the 4th. Today's 4th.
I know.
May the 4th be with you.
And you.
And so, anyway, so we're shooting this up. So this memory just popped up open. Oh. And that was a great moment to share and to have. And so that was just a really good moment. And to me, that characterized who she was.
Oh,
to me, seeing that.
We had the most eclectic group of friends and the most eclectic.
Oh, yeah.
Just activities. And she threw herself into every one of them.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, that was one thing. So all the way up to her junior year, she had all this going on. Senior year rolls around, just like anything else, where she's senior projects coming up. Fall season is soccer. does soccer, have the senior day, all that stuff. Kind of, at least for me, and I'm sure for you a little bit, and we can talk about a little bit more, but anytime, I think that's your closure for a sport is when you have that senior day or that last game. You mentally are.
You spend all 4 high school years watching these kids get this recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's your last home game, and you're the senior, and it's all about you for that 5 minutes.
Yeah. And so, and it's closure, then they play their last game, and, they were in districts trying to get the playoffs, and it was that hopeful it was going to happen, but yet you knew that could be the last game for them for that sport. So we knew that coming up. We're like, okay, that's happening. So we didn't have to worry about winter sports because she didn't do it.
No, but she was involved in
other stuff in choir, and
working towards district or honors choir,
and she's working on her senior project and all this other stuff. So everything that a senior is supposed to be going through, as a parent, you're experiencing that too, because you're like, okay, are you getting this done? Senioritis is a real thing. You're trying to tell your kid, come on, you got to push through, because they're hitting that wall.
About halfway through the year, you realize you spent the last 3 years dreading the day that they were ready to move out, and then all of a sudden there's that flip too. Oh my God, if you do not move out tomorrow, we're going to murder you.
Yeah. Yep. So all this is happening, and then in that winter, there was this new virus coming out that was hitting. And I remember when it really started taking toll, like in February, January, you're hearing all these cases pop up. And then about March, states start shutting down. And I was like, oh my God. And then I'm like, nah, this is something it'll go away.
It'll blow over.
Living
in rural town USA, which we always have. Yeah. We've always lived in small town USA. It was very like, what is going on? Okay, well, it'll go away.
It's going to go away. It's going to go away. And so that was my mindset. And then her senior year of softball, going back one more year, her junior year, they ended up taking second in state. Mm. They had everybody back, ready to make another run. And it was just like, man, they're going to, and
it was going to be amazing.
It was going to be amazing. I was like, this could be so fun. Season starts. And their last game was Declo. And I remember
their second game of the season?
Second or third.
It wasn't very far.
It wasn't very far in the season. So it was March, I believe. Yeah, it was close. It was
first
close.
Or second week of March.
March, yeah. We had just played 2 or 3 weeks in the season.
Yeah.
And their Declo game, they had a doubleheader, and everything clicked that game. They were crushing home runs. The whole team had 6 or 7 home runs. Everybody, that whole team, it was scary how good they looked. And I was like, wow, they're going to do something this year. And so watching that, you're like, okay. And then the very next day, we're shutting school and we're not going to be at school. So I remember being at school that day, and it's like, okay, we're going to be done. We were like the last state or second to the last state to get a case of COVID. And I just remember, kids asking me, they're like, hey, how long do you think this lasts? And I remember saying, I don't think it's going to last very long. We might take a couple of weeks.
We were pretty small town optimistic. A couple of weeks, we'll be back in school.
We'll be back. I think it's just a precaution thing. I think they'll get it figured out and we'll be back. And it didn't. And then it turned into a few weeks, turned into like, no, Mom, we're not coming back. And just like that, everything was done. And that was rough for everybody. And I remember just like, holy crap. I was like, and I think everybody was in disbelief. We were kind of like, what's going on? It's like, it was like a really weird.
It's like being in a Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's like a Twilight.
You'd sit at home on the couch doing your online learning with your kids, and your daughter's in a room doing her online learning. And it was like, you're going to wake up?
Yeah, it was bad. And I just, and then teaching, it was like weird because I was doing lessons.
It was a joke. Let's be honest.
It was so bad. It was, I remember trying to teach lessons, and we tried to hold the kids accountable as best we could with the situation.
But nobody was prepared for that.
Nobody was prepared. This was all new territory for everybody.
Yeah.
And this is not a knock on who was running the country. This was not a knock on anybody. It was just new territory.
Well, how do you, yeah.
And so we were trying to navigate it the best we can, keeping kids out, thinking that that's the best option, and it was rough because this thing was killing people that we knew.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the first cases in our state was a nurse that I went to high school with.
Yeah.
In Idaho. But when I was in Oregon, and she was a nurse in Idaho. Anyway, so all this stuff is happening. I just remember, wow, that's it. Sports-wise, the graduation thing.
Well, that was just the icing on the cake. It was like you totally lost your last season of sports. There was just that unknowing. Now, is anything ever going to get back to normal? Mm-hmm. And then you'd wait another week, and it wasn't changing. And you'd wait another week, and it wasn't changing. And then it was like, well, there with our softball, your final softball season, and all that it could have been. And then it was graduation. It was like, well, we're not going to do graduations. We're just going to, some schools did the drive-through and you got your diploma. Some schools mailed them out. I mean,
I did think, though, that our situation, I think and I know schools were trying to do the best they can. I think the way they tried to do it with us was
they were able to walk because they gridded the football field and
said you could
like
have
a lottery. Said you can have 6 people in your grid. And then the seniors were on the stands separated.
They're like
it's horrible.
Up in the stands, which having graduation outside is not an unknown.
No,
that happens. No. So I was just like, so we had I remember them having a little celebration. We had a parade. Had them lined up. We did.
That was kind of cool. I mean, I wish they would have stuck with that tradition. They did it for a couple of years, but I don't think they do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. It was.
I haven't heard about it.
So in that aspect, they got something kind of unique. But it's not the traditional.
No.
What we know. So she got a graduation.
She did.
We were able to, kind of have a shrinking party for her.
Yeah.
Which, everybody at that time where it's like, do you come, do you not come? It's like, well, it's up to you. That's the way it is. The world is. We didn't know how it was going to play out.
Still was a lot of unknown. I mean, it was still very early and everything, and it was just very unknown. And I mean, we were lucky enough to be able to take her on a senior trip and have a really good time because we were able to go to more rural areas.
Yeah. Some states were more open than others. And so that was, but when it came down to her softball season, to me, that it hurt. And I know it hurt you, and I know it hurt her, and I know every single senior, I don't care who it was, every single senior and their parents.
I don't care if you played sports or not.
Yeah.
To have that 4-year goal and that light at the end of the tunnel basically ripped away from you for things that we weren't even comprehending.
And in perspective, there's been horrible things that happened in the world. This was, for us personally, it was just like, wow, that's it.
Yeah, it was crazy.
We don't have any other kids. It's not like we have another kid or two that we, for us, it was sucked. For Kelley, it sucked. For all those seniors, it sucked. It was like, it was it. We're done. And it was no closure as far as I'm concerned. And there's never really been a closure on that. And so that, not having that closure in, the coaches, they did come over and they kind of had their own little personal ceremony. They brought stuff to individuals because, and I know it wasn't the same.
No, they tried. They tried to do what they could do.
Yeah, but
again, it's one of those situations with no
that class
guidebook.
Yeah, and that class in general is just for anybody that had sports that year. It was like, I don't think there was ever any. It was just, that's it, and
it was crazy.
And so
fast,
and it was over. And for me. And it's gotten better, but it took years. It's like I had a hard time wanting to go watch youth sports. And
it took me probably 3 to 4 years for I to go watch a softball game.
Yeah.
And it was nothing about those kids.
No, it had nothing to do with the kids. It had nothing to do about anything else. And I think some people are like, well, your kid's not playing, so you don't. And it's like, no, it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
It had everything.
I like watching baseball.
I enjoy watching baseball other than softball. I love going watching and supporting our local community and our kids that do it. For me, it was just like, it was so hard. It was like, because of what it could have been.
Well,
and what was taken away.
So you wouldn't have cared if they'd have taken dead last that year in our district.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't get the opportunity to do anything.
No, they didn't.
That was the rough part.
That was very rough. And so I remember trying to go watch the following year or two, and it was rough. And I remember
I stayed home.
So yeah, and the thing, the frustrating part about this whole thing was, and this is about how selfish people are is I remember going into the fall year of 2020, whole new school year. By God, we're going to have sports. And so football starting, volleyball, and the social distancing thing was still a thing. And I remember, you wear a mask if you wanted. I remember parents were, and then I remember winter sports in particular, they were like, okay, you can bring only a couple people to the game.
Each player was allowed 2 people.
So you had to wear masks separately, and
try to out of town. I don't remember. There was a whole bunch of.
And so they had rules. It's just like, you could only bring this many people. And I remember parents bitching. And I was just like, are you effing kidding me?
Right.
I would have freaking went to the moon, sat on the moon, if my daughter or son or whoever could get a chance to play another game. And that was like, you guys have no idea what you have. And that was the frustrating part.
Well, it was about the parents. It didn't matter about the kids.
Yeah, and it was like they were constantly bitching about, oh my God, I got to wear a mask. Oh my God, I got to do this. I'm like, your kid's getting to play a sport.
Yeah.
That the season before had it ripped away from them.
Yep.
And you're bitching because you might have to wear a mask, or your kid, or you can't go watch your kid that game.
Yeah. Boo-hoo.
Yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? And so that really frustrated me. And I was and I think it affected me coaching a little bit too, because I was just like, you ungrateful people. How the hell can you stand here with all this going on? And then things started relaxing throughout the year, and things started getting more back to normal. But
it did go away, and we are back to normal.
And we're back. And, I looking back, I'm in, and I know it still affects, and it's always going to affect not just our daughter, but any kid of that year.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
But I think as long as they have the support, and I think as long as people recognize that, and I think parents in general recognize that, especially if they had a kid that graduated that year, whether it's high school, college, or whatever, when they had something like that gone, whether it was sports, just that school experience, whatever it was, and it was taken from. And I know there was a lot worse things that happened. People lost family members, and there was a lot of things like that happened too, that or awful thing took away from people.
Yeah.
But
we're not trying to downplay it at all.
This is not to downplay.
It's just our personal experience.
This is just our personal experience and what we had to deal with as sports parents. I think is just having that support, have that conversation, work through it. And it's been 5 years. So yeah, it's crazy. But I'm happy we got to be a part of our daughter's life like that and be able to do that. I know there's some parents that can't.
Yeah, or
they choose not to. The ones who can't because of their jobs, that sucks. But that's unfortunately, they're trying to support. The ones that choose not to go to watch their kids' games, shame on you. I'm sorry. But but the ones who can't because of their job, or, they got to raise a family and they can't be there, maybe that's part of it. But
still keep letting your kids do that.
Yeah. My biggest thing is don't ever take something away from your kid if they truly want to do it. Find out, figure out how you can make it happen. So that's it for this episode talking about that. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, I mean, not really. It was rough.
It was rough. And, I think learning from it, growing from it, I think that's...
we were always very blessed to be a part of everything she did. And that's not to say we coached everything she did. No. She did, by any stretch of the imagination. She had lots of coaches. But we made it a priority to be there, to watch her, to support her, to yell at her when she was running like she was pulling a trailer behind her. We made that a goal.
Yeah.
And one of my best memories was when she was playing catcher, and I think it was like the first year of softball, so she was still pretty young, like 10. Yeah. And I was sitting behind the dugout, and you always yell at your kid. Hopefully it's always positive. Hopefully it's, but you do, because you want them to know you're there cheering them on.
Yeah.
And we always did. You were like, yeah, Kelley, whatever she was doing. But try not to be like the bleacher coaches.
Yes.
But she had caught the ball, and I was like, good job, Kelley, and she turned around in the middle of the game. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
One of my best memories.
Yeah.
She was like 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the guy that I worked with, he was there watching his kid, because it was in Elton, and we just come down from the mill. And he just started laughing. He was like, that's amazing.
So yeah. So a lot of good memories.
It's the little things.
It's the little things, and just you being there, and people, the money that goes into whatever, screw it. What the money should never matter.
Well,
I mean,
as long
obviously,
as you're able to,
as long
as you're able to
don't
keep a
put
roof
yourself in
and
the
food.
Yeah, don't neglect your room and board and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yes.
But I mean, gosh, don't ever let, if a kid wants to do something and you can do it, let it happen, because it should be about their experience.
Yep.
You've
Well,
had
she's a
yours.
very well-rounded person, and I mean, she's not the only one. We being in education, and you, as long as you've coached, and you recognize those well-rounded kids.
Yeah.
They know how to collaborate. They know how to be coached. They know how to hold responsibility. They know how to have work ethic. They're just well-rounded kids, and they're a better member of society because of it.
So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We want comments. I haven't had any comments, or at least I haven't seen any. But there is a link to our webpage on the description. When you're looking at our description of the episode, there's a link there for if you want to send comments and stuff. Feedback's always great. But last thing we always touch is mascots. Exciting part.
That's why I come.
It's Amanda's favorite part. So, unusual mascot of the week takes us to Waters Meat, Michigan.
Waters Meat?
Waters Meat.
Join, like
Waters
together?
Meat. Like meat together. Like water, MEET. Meat.
I bet there's like two rivers that come together.
Yeah. So this is actually hour north from one of our past episodes, the Rhinelander Hodags. Okay. So this is about an hour north of that. So this is in Michigan. So this is part of the peninsula of Michigan. So Michigan's a unique state. It's kind of like there's two parts to the state. You have the part above Illinois that looks like a mitten. And then you have the part that's north of Wisconsin that kind of wraps eastward. And there's basically a strip of water, narrows of water that separates Lake Michigan and I think it's Lake Huron.
Oh, Heron.
Okay. So those two lakes are kind of all around Michigan, both lakes. And then there's like a little peninsula. And so that section of Michigan is where we're going to be locating ourselves. So closer to Wisconsin, not too far from, like I said, Wisconsin, north of there. So population of 273 as of 2023.
Oh, wow.
Okay, tiny town. Median age is 45, 46 years old. The surrounding community altogether is about 1,400 people.
And that's about the size I grew up in.
Yeah. It's going to be more like your hometown because a lot of natives.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so a lot of Native Americans in the area. They make up a high population of the school. Part of the reservation, there's actually a casino north of the town, just outside the outskirts of town. There's a golf course, looks like a golf course, and there's like a casino. Native influence on the area. Median household incomes around $60,000. Between 2022 2023, there was a spike in population. We're from 243 to 273, so it's like a 12% increase. So apparently, it's becoming a place to live. So the household income from that same time period went from 49,000 to 60,000, 23% increase. So property values around 68.5, so $68,500. Home ownership is around 88%. The largest ethnic group, whites are at 44%. Native American is 39%.
Okay, so yeah, definitely.
It's definitely, and then population. The rest of it makes up, I think, the Hispanic population makes up about the rest. The employment rate is at 8.4. There's around 119 to 129 employees. Most common job in that area, at least the employment sector, is public administration, whatever that means.
City jobs.
City jobs, probably 53 people. Retail, 30. And then arts and recreation, 16. The community, so this town, and it's became popular because of a commercial on ESPN. So the community its high school basketball team was featured on a commercial that aired on ESPN a while ago. And the theme of the commercial is, without sports, would you root for this mascot? So,
Okay, now I really want to know
all
what
right.
it is.
The mascot is the Nimrods.
The Nimrods?
The Nimrods.
Like, you're such a Nimrod.
Well, but it's biblical, right? Old Testament Nimrod.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was just using it as an insult.
Yeah, people say it's an insult, but it was a biblical name. He was a hunter in the Old Testament.
Kidding.
Yeah, no, Nimrod.
That's kind of cool then.
Yeah, so
they based.
So that's what they based it on. So the school's team's nickname is the Nimrods. The Nimrod's a mighty hunter, according to the Old Testament in the Bible. The community of Westmead lies in the heart of the Ottawa National Forest, which is prime hunting and recreational land. School's nickname came in 1904. 1986, ESPN first brought the attention of Watersmead and the Nimrods on their network because of their nickname. Very unique. The student body consists of 26 white and 1.3% Latino, 70% American Indian. Okay, and let's see, what else do I got?
What was the name of the town?
So it's Watersmead.
Watersmead. Oh,
yeah, Watersmead Nimrods. Watersmead School District. So
I like it.
Yeah, Nimrods. And so the population, 41% female, 59% male. So a lot more dudes than there are women there. And the school district, 72% of the students participate in federal free or reduced meal programs. There's about 150 kids, K through 12, and the student ratio is 8-1. So not too bad.
Kind of a teacher's dream as far as like
yeah.
small class settings.
But you're probably teaching multiple things. That's
yeah. Your small schools you're teaching, yeah.
You're probably teaching subjects easily.
You're teaching science 7 or 6 through 12.
Yes, exactly. And so that's our mascot of the week, the Nimrods.
I like it. That's cool.
So again, I want to thank Amanda, the coach's wife, for showing up today to cover for Gonzo. And everybody take care of yourself. See you next week.
Bye.